Good day, fair visitor. Today's topic of conversation is the weighty debate over immigration and the potential abuse of the asylum system by criminal gangs and economic migrants hoping to take advantage of the UK's overwhelmed immigration processing system. Firstly, let me say that we need a comprehensive and compassionate asylum system. The world has its fair share of war-torn areas and oppressive regimes, and it is only right that more peaceful countries provide support for the tortured and oppressed. However, for the asylum system to succeed, it is essential that the system is free from abuse by criminals and economic migrants who bypass the residency application process by disposing of identity papers and claiming that they have faced oppression in a country that border force cannot confirm their residency of. Criminal gangs charge as much as a year's salary to make it through the other safe countries in the EU to British shores. These fees are paid in cash or as a form of bond, with the promise of a job upon arrival, often in slave-like servitude or prostitution, and terms for repayment being indefinite, potentially never-ending. Before we address the pros and cons of immigration, it's important to understand why the legitimate patrons of a country are angered by immigration in general, and illegal immigration in particular. Every time someone enters the UK, either legitimately or otherwise, the existing nationals are asked to share their resources. These resources include space, finances, and potential opportunities. The asylum system takes time to make judgments, recently a lot of time, during which time the asylum seeker must be given accommodation, supported with sustenance grants, and monitored to ensure that they do not abscond into the criminal underworld. Meanwhile, to the onlooking nationals, their children are sacrificing their futures, communities are slowly disintegrating through lack of investment, and governments are being undermined by a legal system that runs rings around them. In 2016, the UK voted to leave the EU, in large part because the EU was expanding into countries that were abusing the open borders scheme that the EU insists that every member nation accepts and adheres to. They weighed up the potential harm to trade between the UK and EU against the soundtracks of their city centres, which had become distinctly Eastern European in character. We had watched our small towns fall victim to syndicated drug and prostitution gangs, enticing local children into becoming gangsters and rendering the emotionally weak into drug-addled burdens on society. Our streets were becoming laden with part-time beggars, who after that season was over returned to their country to enjoy the spoils of their labour. Is it any wonder that the voters thought the EU open borders were too much trouble to bother with? Of course, whenever the conversation turns to immigration, the liberals and left wing instantly start telling us that immigrant contributions to society are invaluable to the economy. The last census highlighted that 10 million out of our 64 million population were born outside of the UK, and undoubtedly they contribute to the social coffers, but they also take from the system too. In average times, these pros and cons probably balance themselves out, but the last 2.5 years have been anything other than average. The government paid people not to work, sit at home, and await news about the COVID-19 virus outbreak. Estimates of the total furlough bill topping £400 billion, or more than £6,000 per head, have been quoted as the cost to the UK alone. So that's an approximate £60 billion to support individuals whose parents never contributed to the system. Now, in itself, this is no reason to end fair and targeted immigration. But when the system is out of control, it soon becomes a rubber-stamping exercise that is based more upon blind hope than provable statistics, and this eventually starts to harm our communities to the point where the voters start to rebel against the system. So, where do we go from here? Our government dreams up deterrents like holding asylum seekers in Rwanda, while the backlog of asylum applicants grows larger and larger. Really, what we need to do is state openly that anyone arriving in the UK through an illegal route will be refused asylum, point blank. The current asylum system states that the applicants should be provided asylum in the first safe country that they arrive in. So it is obvious that when a boat arrives on our shores from France, Spain, Belgium, Netherlands, etc., that we have no requirement to treat them as asylum seekers due to the fact that they are only escaping from safe countries. We are often told that immigration is only a UK problem, but that is only because the EU are ignoring their responsibilities. The EU loves to fight their battles in court. Maybe it's time for us to seek redress from them on their home turf. It's important to understand that these are just my thoughts on a subject that is certainly more complicated than I can contemplate, but I hope that there is some resonance in what I have said. If you have found value in this video, please feel free to engage by hitting the like button, sharing it with your friends, commenting, and maybe even subscribe if you would be interested in watching more of my videos. Thank you very much for watching. If I've connected with just one viewer, then I feel my efforts have been more than worth it. I hope to see you again soon.